All right, we have a quorum, so let's go ahead and call the meeting to order, please.
Sue Burton,
Here.
David Harrington,
Here.
Matthew Crutcher,
Here.
Landon Moore,
Here.
Laura Bellin,
Present.
Mark Munson, Gary Waters,
Here.
Derek Challenger, Solomon Ashby,
Here.
Elizabeth Gooden,
Present.
Ann Seward, here. As you stated, we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you very much. I hope everybody had a chance to review the minutes, and if so, do we have a motion to approve?
So move to be approved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed. All right, are we ready for the applications for retirement?
Certainly. There were no applications for the Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System, no applications for the Portsmouth Fire and Police Retirement System. We had one reported death, Geneva Brown. She was the spousal beneficiary for the Fire and Police. Her date of death was January 31st. There is no death benefit. You have active participants as of April 1st of 19 in Fire and Police, 17 in Portsmouth Supplemental.
All right, thank you very much. Ready for our recurring business report.
Your financials for the year-to-date ending February 28th. You had a beginning balance of $230,630,954.83. Your interest income, $4,135,637.90. Your administrative expenses, $135,973.82. You had return of benefit payments of $35,121.55. Your recurring benefit payments, $20,257,776.86. You have employer contributions, $4,158,377.51. Your realized gain, year-to-date, $1,683,031.16. Your unrealized gain, $5,761,509.04. You have a net change of a loss year-to-date of $4,620,073.52, leaving you with an ending balance of $226,010,881.31. This is a change from your position last year of a loss of $6,038,871.18.
Any questions? All right. We have some unfinished business, the investment committee. RFP status.
Yes, so if I may, I will share with you all, as you all recall, you authorized an RFP to go out for the investment advisory firm. Mr. Ammons on staff is our purchasing agent. He's going to brief you about that process, and I believe we will discuss, Mr. Ashby, the selection of who will sit on the committee in a closed meeting. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Mr. Ammons.
Okay. Hello. My name is Mike Ammons. I'm the purchasing agent for the city. And as Ms. Seward was saying, we were tasked with putting together requests for proposals for an investment advisor person or firm for the retirement board. We went through the RFP process, issued RFP. We received 12 viable responses for review. What happens at this time, a selection committee is formed. They perform the first evaluation of the packages to get them to a minimum number. Our city code requires that we select a minimum of 2 companies to interview and go forward from there. So after that, and once we decide of which companies we're going to interview, we invite them in, they come in, they do what we call a dog and pony show, tell us how great they are and what they can do for you. And from that point, we narrow it down even further, and then we make a selection based on the criteria that's listed in the request for proposals. And I'm here to answer any questions. The Virginia law requires that that these things are confidential, and some things I can't discuss, but I'm waiting, and if you have any questions on the general nature, I'm willing to answer them, but I can't discuss any specifics at this time.
Have you narrowed it from the 12? Was that your reason for bringing them in?
The first step is to narrow it from the 12. That's what the evaluation committee does. Since it's an open procurement, everybody has a chance to participate, and the law requires you to narrow it down. So everybody's equal at this point. There are no, you haven't narrowed anybody or eliminated anybody yet.
So who does that? Who's on that selection committee?
That's your determination, and if we want to discuss that, we probably need to entertain the closed session motion now so we can get back to that particular issue.
To determine who's going to be on the selection committee?
Correct.
Okay. I'll wait and ask my question then.
Okay, all right. You have a motion for a closed session in front of you. Someone, or Mr. Challenger can make the motion and someone adopt it and second it, and we can go into closed session.
I'll do it. I move to go into closed meeting as allowed by Virginia Code 2.2-3712 pursuant to the applicable exemptions, Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3705.7 24A, for the purpose of discussion or consideration of a local retirement system, internal deliberations of, or decisions on the pursuit of particular investment strategies, or the selection or termination of investment managers prior to the execution of such investment strategies, or the selection or termination of such managers, if disclosure of such information would have an adverse impact on the financial interests of the financial system. I need someone to adopt.
Oh, so moved.
And a
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. I'm sorry, everybody, but we're going to have to ask you to leave the room momentarily while we have this discussion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. We ready for our motion?
I'd like to make a motion that the investment committee handle the RFP evaluation process.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Moving on. Did we want to discuss a little bit more about the minute format? Remember, we had discussed not having quite so detailed minutes in writing because all of them were available online, and you could watch for all the detail if you missed a meeting. Did we have any more discussion about that?
I did watch the link that you sent, and it was very helpful. And I think if we do that, that would be great. There was open question. Mr. Ashby, we're going to check about the archiving, I believe it was. It's in the minutes.
Yeah, I discussed that matter with the IT director for the city, and the matters, the tapes, they are archived on YouTube, and he was not able to say definitively how long they are required to keep them, but that he would look into whether there's another way that we can make sure that those documents are available beyond YouTube, like being able to save it within the city's information system. So I don't think that's going to be an issue for our purposes in terms of how long the information would need to be kept. So I mean, I don't think we have a concern if it's 10 years. I don't think we need 10 years. I think we need, years, but not 10 years. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. Because I don't think the tapes, for this purposes, from what I was told, takes up that much space, that is going to be an issue in terms of preserving it for the purposes of a realistic time frame for our purposes.
And my understanding is that there's a committee within the city that's looking at, because this is a new form of preserving records, and they're being guided, I believe, by the Library of Virginia, because they're the ones that set all the standards for all of the minutes, the circuit court, the deeds, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that there will be eventually a policy that will be established and actually say how long these things are required to be, and then perhaps archived in some other location, like
Yes.
the city's backup database, et cetera. So,
With that assurance, I move that we change to the abbreviated minutes.
all right, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Did you hear that, Mr. Waters?
I heard it, but I don't approve of it.
Okay,
I like the minutes.
all right,
So we got one opposed.
all right, so 3-1.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, we have some new business. We have a John Hancock invoice that needs to be approved.
Two, front and back of the page.
I move it be approved.
Is there a second?
What's the difference between them? It
One
seems like
one is the fire and the other is supplemental.
I didn't recognize the SRS COLA. The SRS didn't make,
That's the supplemental retirement system.
so it doesn't say fire and police. That's why I wasn't
Yeah.
sure.
One of them says Portsmouth Fire and Police Retirement System at the top.
Oh,
And
I
then
was
the other
looking
one-
at the coding itself at the bottom. All right, thank you.
Are these just like the quarterly invoices or something for?
This was some additional work that was done. There was this letter that had to go out for the supplement. They did all the printing and mailing of that. And then there was a COLA analysis that was done by their actuary outside of the normal realm of the contract.
The cost of living
Yes,
increase?
The calculation of that.
and what the effects would be long-term.
I was just, the only reason I asked is if it was regular recurring quarterly invoices that, we're contractually obligated to already pay, do we need to even talk about it?
Now, these are different, but I do usually bring the contractual ones as well so that the board does know what sort of money is going out in expenditures.
We had the motion and the second, and did we vote to approve
Now, we didn't get to the
them?
vote part yet.
Okay. Let's go ahead and vote on the question.
Aye.
All right. Uh-oh, okay, it's approved.
Okay.
All right, and next we have some information to be given to us about the other post-employment benefits, otherwise known as OPEB.
Yeah.
I believe Mr. Ashby is going to explain, or are you going to explain, Ms. Seward?
Well, maybe we'll do this together and keep it kind of fun. Is that all right?
Yeah,
All
sure.
right. Just to give some background for you all, this is an item that actually is very fresh. The council recently acted Tuesday, what is today, Thursday, to enter into what we call an other post-employment benefit trust. So Mr. Ashby, I know, will walk you through the legal documents that had to, the ordinance, et cetera, that had to be a part of this process. What I have included in the back of the package here for you is an actual presentation that was provided to City Council on March 12th, just so you could have an understanding of the background of that. I won't bore you with all of the details, but basically, other post-employment benefits, or rather we refer to that as OPEB, is a promulgation that came out from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. That's think about it as a national organization that kind of sets the standards for what governments must report in their financial statements. Specifically, the liabilities that we commit to for all of our retirees that are the other, not the pension related, but the health insurance benefits here in Portsmouth. And so not only do we have to report what the estimated liability is in the long term for all of our retirees, we also should be putting aside funding to accumulate to pay for those bills. Most communities started doing this back in probably 2009 or 10. I believe that the city has struggled a little bit financially with doing that. We did put away $3 million in the current year's budget for this purpose. This is, much like pension, it's an annual required contribution that has to be made every single year. So what the city has done is we have now we are trying to enter into a trust with VACO, VML, the Virginia Association of Counties, and the Virginia Municipal League. They have a pooled trust here in Virginia. It's the only pooled trust in Virginia. It is probably one of the top in the nation as well. And they basically administer all of those funds and investments on behalf of the various localities and governmental agencies to invest and grow those funds. As a part of that process, however, we do have to have a trustee board. And so I'll turn to Mr. Ashby and Mr. Challenger to address all that. So.
There are two documents that need to be completed by the board. The first agreement is called the Trust Joinder Agreement for Participating Employers under the Virginia Pool Tab Trust Fund, which is just an agreement which says that the City of Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement System of the City of Portsmouth is agreeing to enter into the pooled OPEB trust fund, which was initially started, if I'm not mistaken, in Lynchburg many years ago. And we're agreeing to join that trust fund. And so this is a document that addresses that, and it's saying that we as a local finance board, will do what's necessary to become a member of the Virginia Pooled Trust Fund, which was also done by resolution on Tuesday. There was a resolution saying that the City of Portsmouth Supplemental Retirement Board will create this local finance board for the purpose of OPEB, and that we would join the Virginia Pooled Trust, and this is a document that says that it's being done. So
Let me add one other thing. Of course, this is by operation of law. This is a separate pool of money. It's a little different from what you all have done in the standpoint that you're now, in one respect, part of a larger body. So there will be one representative to the larger body, but that has an entire structure around it in terms of those operations. But this is how the state law allows you, if you have a retirement board in place, to utilize that for the purpose of an OPEB pooled fund. So this is an added element to what you do, but there are a number of other structures in administration that supports this particular pooled fund.
Does this pool apply only to the closed retirees, or all?
This is all. This is our OPEB. Excuse me. This is the OPEB for our retirees. I don't think it's everyone.
It's all retirees of the city who are eligible for health insurance. So, you know, all of those who are eligible. And so what we're doing is we are putting aside money that will grow in investments and be there. And then annually we have to contribute so that we hopefully fully fund that liability eventually. And then we will draw from that as we have to pay out claims for those health insurance benefits as well.
Does that money come from the retirement fund?
No, sir. This is separate and apart. It's a whole nother pot of funds that will be managed separately. It's just convenient to have one body who's already really doing something very similar to do both functions.
Who did you say runs the money or invests the money?
It's a pooled trust through VACO VML, the Virginia Association of Counties, and the Virginia Municipal League. And so it's a body, kind of an arm of government that's been created, and they do all the administrative management functions.
So it's separate. It's not the same people that run VRS?
No.
Because they're very well-known and reputable as far as the investment of that money. And if it was the same group, I'd be pretty confident in them.
Yeah.
Most major cities that have OPEB trusts are members of that. I mean, there are Virginia Beach's members. There's a long list of cities, and not only cities, but school systems, authorities who are doing it. It's a large list of.
It's over, I think, 48.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long list of localities that have jumped in, so.
So the advantage is that it's a large group. Is it an advantage from a premium standpoint, from a bidding standpoint?
There are several advantages. One is you get the best investors you could possibly get because you have such a larger fund. Therefore, the larger funds attract the best investors, the best investment managers, because it's a larger fund. It's a greater amount of money to be invested in, greater compensation. In addition, it helped the city because you're allocating the money every single year. There's an actual amount of money that's being financed for this purpose. So it's not an unfunded liability. You're actually funding it every year. The other thing that it's good, the administrative aspect of it is now being done by this pool, as opposed to us trying to create our own OPEB trust fund, which some municipalities have tried to do, but that's kind of a huge task to do administratively. So I know that's some of the benefits. I'm sure there are others, but.
So you do, exactly right. And so the administrative cost is now being shared over 46 others, so it's going to be much less. And so it's a well-run
Do you have an idea how
pool
much money
trust.
they have?
They do have some reports that they've shared. I'll be happy to give those to you on the
Multiple
side.
billions, probably.
Yeah, I'll be happy to get that information and share it with you.
What do we have to do, make a motion that it be approved, or we sign the documents?
So there are two things. One, I think they've got to make the motion to approve that document, and then you'll also need to elect which investment pool you want to target. They have two portfolios, Portfolio 1 that targets 7.5%, and Portfolio 2 that targets 6.5%. And I'm sure you can kind of imagine the difference. The majority, 75 to 80% of the clients are in the 1 category. That's got a higher allocation towards equity, and a little bit of a private equity. They have 15 different strategies. They're pretty diverse. In the second pool, that's a little more risk averse, but you have 60% fixed income. So there's no private equity piece to that. I would recommend you probably go with the majority of the pool. The 80% is in that Portfolio 1. So.
I see here it says that the city liability is $75 million. The ARC for this year is 2.8, and we're contributing 3. So what about that difference? How does that?
Well, so actually, we should have been contributing every year for about 7 or 10 years. Forgive me for not knowing the exact number. We have not been able to financially do that. And so fiscal 18, the current year, we set aside $3 million, which was a little bit more than the 2.8, but we've got a long way to catch up. We've got a $75 million liability as of June 30th of 17. So the more you put in, the quicker you're going to get there.
The first contribution?
This will be the first. We've now established a trust. Assuming you all adopt all this, we will quickly move that money over to the trust. The goal now would be that every budget year moving forward, we would put forward about $2.83 million. That number will change because it's based upon an actuarial calculation, much like our pension is. We do that calculation every 2 years. In the proposed budget by the city manager, we do have $1 million, and she's put forward a plan over the next 3 years to build another $1 million in year 2 and up to $3 million in the 3rd year, so that we will get to where we are adequately funding our annual required contribution.
So the liability, the $75 million, is not a fixed number.
Well, it floats based upon, much like with a pension, it's a projection of the number of people that will take advantage of the benefit, their age, the amount of their benefit. And so it's a calculation that has to be done because, as we know, people will enter into the system and people will fall out of the system. So the number will move, but it doesn't move greatly. That $75 million will float a little bit up and down.
Thank you.
Does that help?
So are we ready
Healthcare's expensive.
to make a motion after seeing the information?
I think Gary did, didn't he?
No, just,
I'll make a motion, we approve.
all right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Do we also have to vote on option 1 or 2?
Yes.
She did. An election of the investment portfolio you would like to select.
All right. Somebody want to make that
I
motion?
move we take the city's recommendations.
Which would be option, portfolio 1.
Portfolio 1.
7.5%.
No, I apologize, portfolio 2.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I had it right, portfolio 1.
7.5%.
Portfolio 1, yes, yes, yes.
Straight now.
7.5%.
Oh, it's about 1 billion exactly total.
Yeah.
All right. We had a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unopposed. All right, are we done with the official business? All right, I believe we have some people here that are requesting to speak. I understand there's one speaker that would like to address. Mr. Holloman?
Yes, ma'am. You okay? Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Chairwoman and members of the Retirement Board. My name's Grover Holloman, and I'm a retiree of the City of Portsmouth Fire Department with 29 years of service. I'm also a member of the Retired Fire and Police Association. This comes to our attention that all requests for cost of living adjustment now need to be requested from the Retirement Board. This method is different from the way it's been in the past, to my knowledge. But therefore, I'm here this morning to ask the Retirement Board to authorize a request for a cost of living adjustment of $75 per month for all sworn public safety retirees and their widows. These increases are needed because of the following reasons. Number one, we have not received a cost of living adjustment in the past 3 years. Number two, research suggests that the prevalence of cancer in firefighters is 9 to 12% higher than the general public. Number three, our police officers have a higher rate of stress-related heart problems. Number four, at the present time, we have some widows receiving $10,000 per year to live on, and they're struggling to make ends meet. For these reasons, the sworn public safety retirees do not feel this request is unreasonable. They have given many years of dedicated service to this city. We are aware this increase, if authorized and approved, will require the city to increase the funding to the retirement system to cover this goal. We believe the city has a team in place to make this happen. I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to bring this important issue to your attention. Thank you.
I'd like to ask the Chief Financial Officer to explain the Retirement Board's position as far as COLAs and pay raises go.
All right. Well, I can tell you, so I've of course, I'm your interim CFO. I've been here for, I think, about maybe 2 months now. But one of the very first things that I observed as I came in was the status of the health of the pension fund. And I did provide, of course, a report to the council along with Ms. Gooden in that regard. Just to kind of give a little bit of a history, your pension fund is not as healthy as it needs to be. You're not currently even funded at the 80% level, which is recommended by best management practices. You were, I think we got you almost there in 2013. However, since that time, due to a number of factors, I think there have been some one-time bonuses that have been given that have come from the general fund. They've not come from this body or the pension, and they could not without going through council. So the funding level has dropped and declined. I think you got yourself up to about 78%, and just in the last 4 years, you are now down to approximately 73%. So you're going the wrong direction. Given that concern, my advice to you, as your CFO, is that you need to become healthy as a fund before you consider expanding benefits, because you're not currently on track to pay for the benefit obligations that you have today, much less taking them to a higher level. And I think it's very important that your primary focus be meeting your primary commitments that have already been made. So I am actually working with the financial advisors on trying to look at our policies and see if we can establish some things that will help us to become healthy, such that once that we do become healthy, these are the types of things that you could consider. That would be the goal. There was an analysis, I believe, when I first came in the door that was ordered through John Hancock that was done. Currently, the city contributes about $8.3 million every year over to the pension fund, again, to try to address the liability that the city has, trying to improve that 73% to get it to an even healthier level. So at that $8.3 million contribution, the analysis that was done was what would the cost be should you increase that by a $75 COLA monthly, and it's $820,000, so you're coming to almost another $1 million contribution. So again, increasing the requirements from a city that has a number of liabilities that you are not addressing and you need to address. So staff's recommendation remains that until such time as the fund becomes healthy based upon industry standards, that would not be something that you consider, because it's most important that you meet the obligations to those that you currently have a commitment to.
All right, I have a question for the city attorney. If the board would recommend that the city authorizes $75 a month extra retirement money, what would happen? Do we have the authority to make a motion to compel the city to do that?
Let me explain and remind the board. I'm sure Ms. Seward wasn't here, but I think it was last year or the year before. It may have been our first year here. The board made a comment that they wanted to have an opportunity to discuss with City Council at budget time the health of this retirement board before the City Council did anything with regard to pay raises or anything, because that concern was the health of this body. As you all know, you are fiduciaries over the fund, and as Ms. Seward has said, your fiduciary obligation is to what exists currently. I'm much like Ms. Seward. You all certainly know, because you've been here longer, you have a pension obligation bond funding that brings you to your current level. The question would be, is it your fiduciary responsibility to make that recommendation given your current status? You can certainly, what the board said before, as I understood it, they had concerns because they had had several bad years. They did not want to be under the pressure of a increase where their fund was going negative. And so then the concern was, we need to have this discussion in advance before, as I understood it, those questions come down to us. I quite honestly, given this current situation, I think that's a discussion for you all, an evaluation for you all. But at present, I don't see it. But that's for you all to sit there and wrestle with in terms of what you see in terms of the health.
All right, well, retirees are being told by certain council members that this board has the authority to grant pay raises to retirees. I was of the assumption we did not have that authority. Now, do we have that authority or do we not have that authority?
You make a recommendation based on the health of your fund and your fiduciary obligations. You are trustees over that particular fund. Your obligation is to make sure the fund operates in a healthy fashion to meet its obligations, and then you forward information on to the city based on that evaluation for the city to address other the related issues.
All right, you're still talking in attorney language. Can I get a yes or no answer? If we make a motion today that we give $75 a month to all retirees, and it's approved, is the city council, regardless of financial situation, is the city obligated to give that pay raise?
That is advice to the city council based on the health of the fund.
So no, it is not
So
within.
the answer would be no.
Yeah, it is not within your authority. You would give advice.
You would advise that that be done
Yeah.
based on the health of the fund.
Which the fund is
Not helpful.
not
Well, I
helping.
understand what the fund is.
Yeah.
But I was always under the impression that we had nothing to do with COLAs or pay raises. But now I'm being told that it's a different matter. If the fund was 80% and we made a motion and recommended it, would the city be obligated to give it?
I will make certain, I'll get you an answer back from a certainty standpoint. It's, to my knowledge, it's never happened, but I will define that for
See,
you.
that's why all these people are here, because that's what they're being told by city council
And
members.
let me be clear.
Yes, sir.
What you have in front of you and what they presented to you is a synopsis of what the ordinance says with regard to this body's role with regard to the city council. What that says, of course, is that you all advise, you determine the structure, the health of the organization, and then provide the information as to where you are as the board requested, in conjunction and consultation with the city council to see what can be done for the retirees. That is your role. Dictation-wise, you don't necessarily stroke checks from that standpoint. So it's a different role.
See, the city's given, last year they gave 2 $500 bonuses, and, nothing was brought before the board. The city council gave it. But the retirement board, to my knowledge, while I've been sitting here, wasn't even informed of giving it until we got a check in the mail.
That didn't come from
But it did
the
come
funds,
from the
though.
retirement fund. You're right.
Correct.
Come from
Right.
retirement funds. I think the
General
distinguishing factor, I may be wrong, and I'll let Ms. Seward and Mr. Ashby correct me if I'm wrong. I think the distinguishing factor is the previous supplemental, I'll call them allowances, whatever you received, those $500 payments, that came from the general fund. I think what they're actually getting back to when you start giving COLAs, and I don't have CPA, so let me clarify all disclosures. We're talking now, if you're going to do a COLA or something of that nature, it's going to come from your retirement fund for those numbers that Ms. Mosier, read this morning. And I think the goal is, guys, to have some say-so in that. I also recall, I don't remember which board member, but I think there was a question by one of the board members before previously about money that's been given to retirees without coming through the board.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the difference of a bonus is the bonus does not impact the liability that you all have the fiduciary responsibility of managing. Now, separate from that, if there becomes a pattern of giving bonuses, there's now that, remember that board I talked about, the Governmental Accounting Standard Board? They have said that if a trend actually becomes prevalent, they will mandate that that become part of your liability calculation. So we have to be very careful here. But I believe what Ms. Gooden is saying is, all of the bonuses have come from the general fund, which is a separate pot. It is, governed by the city council. It did not come from this body or from the funds that have been set aside to meet the liabilities. So.
Madam Chair, can I speak to the handout we gave?
Just briefly, please.
Okay, my name's Dalton Alexander. The first one is from the city attorney that brought us here. Also, we understand that the manager is presenting to council members that also bonuses should be coming out of this board. That's what we're hearing. Now, this handout we have, this is just, the first one has to do with cancer among firefighters. We're more apt to have it. The second sheet shows our widows, someone making $10,000 a year. When you talk about health of the fund, yeah, we understand that. And we're being directed by council members because of this letter here saying that it has to come before this body. That's why we're here. And the two back pages has to do with the information. In January, we asked for a call through the city council, and we got another one here dated for February. And now here we are, and we understand fully what, if this board was to ask, to agree, to recommend to the council a $75, then it's, the city council has to approve funding for that. It's just not that it would come out of the money. They have to approve the funding, which that's what we've asked for. We've asked for it through council for the $75, and of course they would fund for it. We're not asking for it to come out of the fund without funding. We don't want the fund just take money out, which has been done in the past for different things. But that's the handouts that we have, and if you have any questions about it, I'll be glad to answer.
All right, thank you very much. Does anybody want to say anything right now? Do we want to perhaps wait until we have a full board to discuss this?
Well, I think the discussion is the health of the fund, and our work has been focused on that with changing our manager and, having the investment committee focus more on what movements we need to make with the funds. So until we're in a position to meet that 80% or better, I think we've been in a position of status quo.
Just as a reminder, I went back and looked. The actuary has reminded us that that annual required contribution, just because of people living longer and people retiring, that's going to continue increasing, he said, until approximately 2040 before we start to see a decrease. So with or without, we're still looking at that amount going up every year.
We just can't afford $1 million hit annually.
If our fiduciary responsibility is to existing participants in the obligation, it sounds to me, we're struggling to meet the current obligation, as Ms. Seward said. You could, and I don't know what exactly the impact of the $75 would be on the total liability, but you wouldn't want an increased benefit to potentially put the fund in such a bad shape that you can't meet your obligations, and then you've hurt inadvertently hurt everybody by increasing the benefit. So even if it's solely from a financial standpoint, the fund's not in the best position to do that. And also, as far as recommending, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to me for the board to have authority to recommend a benefit increase or to actually approve it.
Well, we certainly appreciate you all coming and speaking to us, and I think that this will be something that we will also be discussing sometime in the future again. I'd appreciate your time. Thank you. Are we ready to adjourn? Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, there was an item 7A. I'm not sure if we did that one.
Yes,
Done.
yeah, they approved
We
the
did.
invoices.
I must have missed that. Thank you.
Did we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody.